Okay, this is the assets to complete talk for my ship project. As you can see here, there's a couple of repeating stuff, so the windows, and my actual base model was this. Very, very basic. So first I'm going to talk about the modelling. Smoothing groups look a bit with do I fix? Yeah, I fixed that, that's fine. Okay, so first of all I'll talk about the unwrapping. If this opens, alright, cool. So actually first of all I'll talk about modelling. No, I want that. So the way this is done is I'm actually going to open it in a different file. Here's one I prepared earlier. So for the low poly, for the windows, I started off with a basic box, deleted the back face. I could have deleted the bottom face, didn't think of that. And then created two other boxes and scaled them along lengthways and horizontally, as well as deleted the faces the player can't see, so the inside ones all the way round. With this box I also inset and extruded inwards, which is how you get this thing here, this little groove. For the door I started off with a plane that I added a few loop cuts to and just shaped to like a rough curve. And the reason I say rough is because I knew I had this thing here essentially covering it, and this was where the focus of the curve would be. And the way this is done is with a cylinder that has quite a few loop cuts in that I just went bend, so like 90, and then just extruded that downwards. Did I limit effects? Yeah, something like that. Just limit the effect. So it bent at a different section. For this part here, this again is a box with a deleted back face. This is a... is this? Yeah, that's fine. Alright, cool. So this is also a bent box that I deleted the inner face, because even though it's in the outside, the player can't actually get up and close to this area, so that saves on geometry, which helps. And then this is just a torus. For this section here, what I would do is just recreate it. So I started off with a tube, and then add an edit poly. Oh, I forgot to, with the tube, just two of those. Actually, what I'll do is I'll select these, go ring, select that, and then delete. I also then scaled this up like that, extruded inwards by group normals, so you get something like that. I then selected every other, so click to, left to, click to, left to. I don't know if the number I set is equal. Yeah, that's fine. Inset like that, and then use my regularizer plugin I found, which I do believe you have to convert to an editable poly to do it. Yeah, and then just essentially just I did that one all like individually because you get stuff like that. Did I think I actually no I did that. So then Control Shift D, set that to local space, so I could then just rotate that, scale it in, and just played around with it until I got what you see there, and then just essentially extruded again, and like a lot less, and scaled down. Although I do, maybe bevel would work. Oh, bevel would work. Well, I've just learnt a new skill. So that's what I did for all of those. And then for this handle, this is a slightly elongated cylinder, very low poly cylinder. So, and then again, just a bend modifier, and just to save on polys, deleted the middle edge, because what I did was I bent this half here and symmetried it over, which gave me an edge loop here. So I then just added an edit poly on top of that and just deleted that edge loop. And for this, I believe it was a tube. It was about 6 sides. It looks more 8 sides. Like that. I then added an edit poly on top. Selected these. Probably do. Oh yeah. Cool. Oh my god. Did something like that. As you know, I didn't actually select the middle. I just went like that. Went like that. I then deleted these faces like that. So, I mean, this is quite an exaggerated version. But once I had the basic shape, it was then just using a mixture of chamfer. So like something like, you know, I can't do it as much as it is there. Chamfer. Then adding an edge loop like that, just to round it out a bit more. And then yeah. And I left the inside round. So that's the modelling part. In terms of the high poly, it's a little bit more complex, mainly for this part here. Everything else was a turbo smooth on top of a quad chamfer by smoothing groups. So here quad chamfer, smoothing groups, and then this button here, because for some reason you can get some issues with when you've got tries with chamfers, so that'll sort that out. So then turbo smooth, and the point of this chamfer is to give me my supporting edges. And then for this part of the high poly, these are just planks that I've just essentially pushed forward, but I do have my back plane because when you bake, if there are any gaps, it'll leave a horrible look inside the normal map. So this will remove any gaps in the bake, because this is essentially in the same position and the same shape as the low poly. As well as that, I also added these boxes. This box here before I chamfered and turbo smoothed, and it's just a box scaled down. See if I can. I don't have the original because I attached it. But yeah, it's just a box elongated going to a point. Everything else was again chamfering via smoothing groups. For some reason, this gave me quite a sharp look, even though I could have sworn my smoothing groups were right, but here then they don't seem to be. Whereas on my low poly they are. That's probably why I got that weird division here, but I actually quite liked it, so I decided to keep it. And then, so you can see here, there's quite a defining line there. And then I took the low poly, this one, and then unwrapped it. In terms of unwrapping, for this part, this is just a planar projection going inwards. This was supposed to be a cylinder map, but they are just planar projections based on axes. Similar thing here, although yeah, I did attach them. I stitched them together. So it essentially unfolded for this. Oh, this was before the smoothing groups. This was a cylinder. Wait. This part here was a cylinder projection, and for this part here, what I did was I set these and that edge loop here as my seams, did a quick planar and peeled, which gave me this result here. This is just a planar projection. This is just a standard box, so a planar projection at the front. No, I did a cylinder projection around here, and then a planar projection for the top and bottom, and then just stitch them together. The torus, well, not the torus, this bent shape here was again through setting my seams, and I left a gap there just so it was all one element and easy to spot / control. For this was done via seams, so what I did was I set the seam all the way around the edge. I set it around the outer edge because if you look at it up close, you would probably be able to see this area here, whereas not so much this area here. So that's what I did there. For terms of texture resolution, I left those separate because I actually had the door. I actually unwrapped each of these individually and then just did like a quick pack, but when I put them all together I packed them manually, and I forgot to stitch these back together for the manual pack. For this again, sorted by seams, so selecting all my hard edges here. That's supposed to go all the way around. So all of these going all the way round, and the reason there's 2 rings here was originally I started off with 1, but trying to get equal texture resolution in the packing was really difficult. So a similar thing with this, but this one was intentional, and all of the little handle parts have their own separate island. Again, seam going around here, and then just a little like seam here just so it can unfold like that. For the handle, if I can find it, this is just a, oh my god, the exact same thing I did with the this part here, which was set my seams to be either cap and then the inner edge, because the player can't see it, quick planar and peel. And for this, I believe I've got 3 islands. Nope, I just have 2. And this is really hard to control. So for this, I have an island going all the way around the inner edge, and then all the outer ones. And this was done pretty much the exact same way, of setting my seams to be here, here, and here, which then quick planar peel, and then that gave me this. And once that was done, I then took my low poly into Substance Painter. I have not opened the Substance Painter file. Assets 2, Assets 2. Yeah, so I took the low poly into Substance Painter, and at the same time put it into the ship, which I then added a lot more stuff onto. So first of all, I duplicated the door, kept all of this selected, then mirrored, so the door was mirrored, and as you can see here, it's by selection. And then just add in an edit poly on top, just so duplicate that, position that into frame, add all of these. As you can see, I duplicated the handle, like the little bent part of the handle, onto the ship, and used that as essentially a chain holder. And then just duplicated the doors again for the front. So if I get the actual ship hull, you can see how it's in the like underdeck part. Alright, so this should have opened by now. Yep. Okay, and in terms of texturing, first of all I will show you what the bait came out as. Overall, quite good. There's a bit of a defining line there. But that was probably because of the smoothing group issue. Yeah, overall quite a nice bake. You can see where it is. It could be a little bit stronger. And the reason I say that is because I find that whenever I bake inside 3ds Max, I don't get as good of a bake. It just doesn't come out as strong. It's probably to do with settings. I'm probably not using the right settings, but I tried to bake this height detail inside Substance Painter and it wouldn't have it, so I did it in Max and just whacked it on. Theoretically, what I could have done was just added a fill. And I'm surprised I've only just thought about this now. Going into my textures, uncheck everything apart from normal, and just drag that in, and it would have made it a bit thicker. However, oh, I remember why. It also affects everything else. Although I could have just masked that, but yeah, as you see, it makes it a bit darker and. It doesn't actually affect it too much. That probably would have helped. Well, with the benefit of hindsight, that's what I would have done. Alright, so first of all, I start off with my handle texture. This was one of my bitmap to material textures I made. So I just added a fill layer, put all the textures in, and then just changed the scale, as well as also changing the height and normal map so it was a little bit less rough. As you can see here, it looks quite rough. Just take that down to about like 5. It looks a lot less rough and more accurate for a handle, because if you had quite a rough handle, you'd get splinters. Next was the main wood section, and this again was a bitmap to material texture. This is the same one as the cannon, which was my dining table, an exact same thing. So add a fill layer, drag all my textures in, and change the scale a bit. This was how I tried to define the planks. And what this is a fill layer affecting the... That should have only been affecting the height, but all I did is I dragged the curvature map into the height and then just masked it to the plank, and that makes it a lot more defined even at a distance, because I found that once I added the dining table texture, you can see how the planks aren't actually defined that much, so this will just help define it, and it kind of gives it the effect of a bit of wear as well, which is like kind of like 2 birds on 1 stone. Next was my fake glass. I talked about it in the texture talk. So base color, no roughness, emissive, and then black emissive, full roughness. And yeah, the reason I put black emissive is because if I was to do no emissive, there's no detail, because where the light is so strong, it's covering the dirt. So just adding that into the emissive, you can see the dirt. Then there was the Canon smart material I used for the rest of the metal, which I just dragged it on, added a black mask, selected all my UV islands. I then had to add a paint for this part, because I didn't actually set up any way to select these, which was a bit of a problem. So yeah, that was just painting, and in some cases there's a little bit like overspray and stuff like that, but it's not that bad. It's mainly like here. If I just take that down a bit like that. But yeah, and then finally there is just a slightly different material for the, oh my god, for the handle, and this is a fill layer, which is a standard metallic. Then I add roughness using a fill with a black and white spot, and then this should have been dirt, but I forgot to set the base color to black, so I don't know. I actually don't think you can tell much of a difference, but that was supposed to be dirt. As you can see here, I did a dirt generator, but like I said, it's barely noticeable. So yeah, and that is the second batch of filler assets. Thank you for watching.